4 men have been jailed over the brutal killing of Tribesmen MC member Mark the Shark Hohua, who was beaten to death in a violent hotbox punishment, ordered by his own club after he was accused of spending gang money without permission. The savage assault, which took place at a gang property in Waimana in June 2022, has been described by the court as a wrong-headed act of discipline that turned into a fatal show of force. According to evidence presented in the High Court at Hamilton, the confrontation stemmed from what was described as a serious breach of trust within the Tribesmen Motorcycle Club. The court heard that club president Conway Rapana became enraged after discovering that Mark, a patched member, had allegedly made several unauthorized online purchases using the club's account. The transactions were seen as not only a financial betrayal but also a direct challenge to his authority. After learning of the misuse, Rapana immediately reached out to his senior lieutenants, Sergeant-at-Arms Patukino Biddle and Vice President Jeremiah Gage, to decide how to handle the situation. Rather than resolving the issue through discussion or mediation, the leadership opted for a violent form of internal punishment known in gang circles as a hotbox. The term refers to a coordinated beating, usually carried out by multiple members, intended to send a clear message about loyalty and obedience within the ranks. It's designed to humiliate and physically break down the target while reinforcing the club's code of discipline. In this case, the court heard that President's order for a hotbox was meant to make an example of Mark and remind others of the consequences of crossing the president, or misusing club funds. Witnesses later described how what was meant to be an internal punishment escalated into a brutal assault that left Mark severely injured and set off a chain of events that would ultimately bring the case before the High Court. 2 days later, on June 18, 2022, Biddle went to collect Mark from his home in Wakatani. Mark's teenage son, Matiu Jr., was with him at the time. The court heard that Mark appeared nervous and had been drinking, likely because he knew a violent confrontation was coming. Biddle made it clear he had no choice but to attend the meeting at the gang pad on Hodges Road in Waimana. When they arrived, Rapana confronted the victim about the missing money in front of other members. With no proper answer, he signaled for the punishment to begin, and Biddle immediately started the assault. Mark was punched and kicked repeatedly as the others joined in. The beating was so violent that the teenager had to be removed from the scene to spare him from observing the brutality. As the attack continued, Mark managed to stagger away briefly but was caught and dragged back. His attackers then forced him into the boot of a Toyota and drove him to a nearby riverbank, where he was left for a short time before being brought back to the property. By this point, Mark was severely injured and barely conscious. Realizing the seriousness of his condition, Rapana ordered other members to take him to Wakatani Hospital and lie about what had happened. When they arrived around 11 a.m., Mark was unresponsive. Medical staff quickly saw the injuries were consistent with a violent beating, and he was airlifted to Waikato Hospital in critical condition. Despite emergency surgery, he died the next day on June 19, 2022, from catastrophic head injuries caused by multiple blunt force blows. The post-mortem examination revealed that Mark had suffered at least 8 blows to his head and body, consistent with punches, kicks, or being struck by hard objects. The medical evidence showed his fatal head injury was likely caused by one powerful impact during the sustained attack. During the trial, Justice David Johnston found that Rapana had devised and authorized the hotbox, and while he might not have personally struck the victim, his leadership and decision-making directly led to the death. Biddle, who was the club's sergeant-at-arms, was found to have played an active physical role in the fatal beating. Gage, who was the vice president, was involved in arranging the meeting and encouraging the discipline, while Tapera participated in the assault and later helped take Mark to hospital. A fifth person, Dean Collier, who was a prospect of the club, was also accused of this assault. However, the jury found Collier not guilty of both murder and the alternative charge of manslaughter. As a result, he was acquitted and received no sentence for these offenses. He was discharged from custody. The jury ultimately returned unanimous verdicts after weeks of harrowing evidence and witness testimony. Conway Rapana, the president of the Tribesmen Motorcycle Club, and Patukino Biddle, the sergeant-at-arms, were found guilty of murder, while Vice President Jeremiah Gage and Associate Wairmu Tapera were convicted of manslaughter. The verdict reflected the court's view that Rapana and Biddle had orchestrated and led the attack, while Gage and Tapera played secondary but still significant roles in the violent assault that led to Mark's death. At sentencing, Justice Johnston delivered a powerful and emotional address to the courtroom, condemning the entrenched culture of brutality that runs through such gangs. He described the so-called hotboxing ritual as unnecessary and dangerous, saying it served no real purpose other than to spread fear and assert dominance. The judge said that the practice reflected a toxic mindset where violence is seen as a solution to internal problems, when in reality, it only deepens the cycle of pain and destruction. Justice Johnston warned that this kind of behavior doesn't just harm the direct victims but ripples outward, leaving lasting scars on families, children, and entire communities. He told the defendants that hotboxing is what people do when they have no respect for each other, themselves, or for their future generations. He emphasized that their actions had stripped a man of his life and destroyed any sense of brotherhood the club claimed to stand for. The judge's remarks highlighted the stark reality that gang loyalty often masks a culture of fear, and that the so-called codes of respect and discipline are built on violence and intimidation rather than true unity or honor. As he handed down lengthy prison sentences, Justice Johnston urged the men to reflect on the damage they had caused and the emptiness of a life defined by power and aggression. Rapana and Biddle received life sentences for murder. Rapana must serve a minimum of 13 years, and Biddle to serve 12 years, before they can apply for parole. Gage was sentenced to 5 years in prison, with credit for his progress toward rehabilitation and literacy while in custody, and Tapera received 4 years and 6 months, after the court took into account his clean record, youth, and time on electronically monitored bail. In closing, Judge said this death was a tragic example of how toxic loyalty and misplaced pride can destroy lives. This was not justice or discipline, it was violence disguised as order, and it costed a man his life. The judge added that the case should serve as a warning to gang members who believe violence maintains power or respect. All it creates is grief, pain, and the slow destruction of everyone who stands under that banner. Mark's death was not just a personal tragedy but a reflection of the deep-seated violence that continues to define parts of New Zealand's gang culture, a culture where loyalty is often twisted into fear, and where discipline becomes death. The judgment was delivered on October 17, and Grid Sparta has obtained a copy of this High Court ruling. It's available for free download in the description section of this video for anyone who wants to read it. The Tribesmen is a well-known motorcycle club based in New Zealand, with a strong presence in Aotearoa, Northland, Rotorua, Murupara, and Christchurch. The club was founded in 1980 in the Bay of Plenty town of Murupara and has since expanded with chapters across the country. They are easily recognized by their yellow colors and signature middle finger salute. Over the years, the Tribesmen have been linked to criminal activities including drug trafficking, extortion, and violence. Several members have faced arrests and convictions for various offenses. The club has recently been in the spotlight due to its ongoing conflict with the Killer Bees, a gang originally formed in 2003 by Josh Masters, who was then the Tribesmen's vice president. The Killer Bees began as a feeder gang designed to develop recruits for the Tribesmen, with members expected to eventually move up into the main club. However, relations between the two groups collapsed in 2019 following the shooting of Killer Bees president Josh Masters. This incident triggered a series of violent clashes and shootings across Auckland. In recent years, police have intensified their crackdown on both the Tribesmen and the Killer Bees in an effort to curb organized crime. In response, the clubs have become more secretive, tightening their internal operations to avoid law enforcement scrutiny. If you're looking for more exciting and eye-catching regular bikie and organized crime updates, don't hesitate, smash that subscribe button, spread the word rapidly, hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments section. Stay tuned, stay curious, stay awesome and take care. Wu-Tang.